Welcome, it's Mark here again at ExoticCar Play Place. And today I'd like to discuss about how old you should be to own an exotic car and how to rationalize that at every age group. I'm going to address everything from the teen years to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I'll summarize quickly a few negatives and a few positives as to why you may consider the ownership of a supercar. So firstly, I'd like to talk about the teenage years. So to summarize, I don't think there's any shortage of internet people that you'll find anywhere. You look on YouTube, just do a quick search under my first Lamborghini or my first Ferrari, and you'll find tons of stories and tons of YouTubers who purchased their first Lamborghini or first Ferrari or first Corvette or first whatever it is. Now, I guess my point here to all of that is that the best years to buy your supercar as a teenager? How do you afford a car like a Lamborghini when you're a teenager? You hear a lot of stories, oh, I was 18 when I got my first Lamborghini. But generally, as an 18-year-old, you have not logged enough time to earn a substantial enough earnings to be able to afford to buy and sustain a Lamborghini. Now, as far as that goes, I guess for the most part, I would have to feel that largely mom and dad are going to play a pretty significant role when you're a teenager and you're looking at the purchase of a Lamborghini. The other thing is obviously you're going to complement that with possibly living in the basement. You're going to be living in the basement likely with mom and dad. They may support you financially as well to get you off the ground. And it has to be one of those real lifelong goals. I mean, it has to be something you've really yearned for years upon years. So as a teenager, again, there's a few things, a few knocks against you. You have not put in the time. You likely haven't earned enough money to that point to likely buy it flat out. So therefore, you're probably going to rely on mom and dad as support, whether it's just for housing and or the financial end of it to buy that car. So then we move into the 20s. And in your 20s, generally difficult to purchase a supercar with not much earnings. So as a 20-year-old, you probably haven't earned a lot of money for a long period of time. Most people finish school when they're 17 or 18 years of age, and then you move into the workforce. So that's a hard knock against you. Now that's generally not always the case. There are people that are very motivated, are very creative, and find ways to earn enough money to purchase a supercar. So the plus side in owning a supercar in your 20s is if you can afford it, generally you have few commitments. You probably don't have a huge family, you're probably not married yet, you likely don't have kids, and there's a very good probability that you still live in mom's basement. So with all those things going for you and you earn a substantial income, or you're creative in how you earn that income, you likely will have a good opportunity, and it likely is a good time of your life to purchase a supercar if you're actually interested in going that route. It is actually an uncanny time of your life. So then we move into the 30s. So by the time you're in your 30s, you've often, in many cases, have started a family, and priorities start to change and priorities shift. And along with that comes the minivan, the infamous minivan. Well, the minivan is basically a way that you can transport large amount of children, wife, hockey equipment, soccer balls, and the whole 9 yards. Now, the other negative to buying a supercar in your 30s is priorities and extra responsibilities likely have kind of moved their way in. Things like a new home purchase, possibly as you move from your 20s into your 30s. A lot of people start looking at the new home, bills, and other things like that. So you have bills, home, and basically your financial commitments have steered you in a direction that kind of take you away from even looking at a supercar. So a supercar tends to fall way back in the priority list, and that's where you wind up in the 30s. If you decide to purchase a supercar in your 30s, there is also a positive spin on this. So at this point, if it remains a priority and for some reason you haven't been steered aside with a minivan and you don't have a house or a mortgage payment or loans that kind of knock you down and you're not driving the minivan, if you happen to be in a situation in your 30s where you can possibly look at a supercar, by this time, you've probably accumulated enough earnings you may be able to support buying and actually maintaining a supercar. Because in the 30s, you've probably got 10 to 15 good earning years under your belt. And if you were actually, you were good with your money and you weren't overly frivolous up to that point, there's a very good probability that you could actually look at purchasing a supercar in your 30s. So then we move into the 40s. In the 40s, by that time often, so here's kind of the negative side of this. Not in a bad way, because it's not all about cars. I mean, everybody enjoys their life in different ways. But a negative in the way of looking at a purchase of a supercar, things that kind of work against you, for example, would be things like, having kids at this point, being married. Those things take priority, and so those will inhibit your purchase of a supercar likely at that point in your 40s. As well, what you can find are peers mostly influence you to do the responsible thing and creating a possible sense of guilt. You'll find that maybe your parents, possibly peers, friends around you, your cousins, whoever it is, even some of your friends may sort of try to steer you away, and I've personally found that where you can actually have people that kind of frown on it a little bit. Not, wow, that's a neat car, but wow, that's expensive, or do you need that car? So you can get a sense of guilt, and that in itself kind of wears on your in the back of your mind sometimes. So as far as being in the 40s, again, that can there are a couple things that work against you. Then on the plus side, in your 40s, there are a couple things that really stand out as a positive, or two positives here in your 40s. So by this time, you basically, if you can find yourself overcoming the adversities, your experience in life in general, your earnings can support the purchase. Because by that time, if you're in your 40s and you've had a full-time job or you've got a great career, you can actually find yourself in a position where you can actually quite easily afford an entry-level supercar, and depending on your wages, possibly something even higher end. So again, the other positive in your 40s is if you actually started your family early enough, if you happen to be one of those fortunate people that got married and decided to have children, if in fact you had those children and your decisions to have children earlier on in life, at this stage, by the time you're in your 40s, they may be old enough that you're no longer toting diapers and baby food, that the kids likely can be a little bit more independent, and you find yourself actually with a possible time and resources to be able to afford a supercar. So in your 40s is actually a pretty solid time to be looking at a car like this if it's ever been a priority for you. So then we move into the 50s. As you approach your 50s, this is likely the best time to buy a supercar, as you are likely still healthy, you have good income, dealers don't dismiss you as a punk, and often, generally speaking, the 50s, you still look pretty solid, your health is solid, and everything kind of points to, hey, this might be a great time. If you've had kids, the kids are likely a bit older now, and that's really not an issue. The other thing, on a positive note, in your 50s, is it's easier to justify with your wife, and you truly can enjoy your midlife crisis. Because let's face it, a lot of people go through the quote-unquote midlife crisis, and with that, it's not uncommon to find that old balding man driving a convertible Corvette. Well, why not buy that supercar? This is a great time for it. You're probably still in decent health. You still look solid, and like I said, at the end of the day, you've still got some years under you that you can enjoy it, and your finances likely can support it. So then finally we move into our 60s and beyond. So a couple negatives, obviously, as you hit your golden years. You are, in your 60s, possibly in your 70s at that time. Some could actually perceive you as trying too hard. Again, at this point, priorities and health may steer you away from using a supercar. Do you really need a supercar when you're 67 years of age? Does it look awkward when you step out and they see this old gentleman that's, with a cane? Does that look awkward? Do you think that's possibly the best time to be owning a supercar? Not to mention, you have to be very nimble to get in and out of many of these cars. Have you tried a Lamborghini lately? A 30-year-old man has trouble getting in that car smoothly and looking and getting a clean getaway. So again, priorities might have changed. Your health is probably not where it once was, and that may kind of steer you away from purchasing a supercar in your 60s and 70s. Now, the plus side is, of course, buying one in your 60s, let's face it, you're going to join the ranks of Rod Stewart, Ozzy, and many other classics, just like that, who continue to enjoy the fruits and the nectar of life, basically, well into their 60s, 70s, and of course beyond, if your heart and your everything else keeps up. So again, in summary, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it shed some light onto, what are the best years to purchase a supercar? Should you be that young guy in his late teens, early 20s? Or maybe you wait until you've established and earned some income. Possibly wait until you're 60. You've definitely established there, the kids are out of the house, and you definitely are looking for something to do as you're probably entering retirement. So is that the time? When is the right time? Again, hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel, and we'll be talking to you soon. Like, comment, subscribe. See you then.